Okay, so now back to home and let's take a look at the projects. So we go down to the projects. The first thing I notice is the different color backgrounds. And I wonder, is that some sort of color coding scheme? Have we added different colors to make it a little more visually interesting? If it's a color coding scheme, let's make it a little more obvious what that is, because it's not immediately apparent to me. If it's not, I would suggest just keeping a white or a very, very light gray background. It'll be enough to contrast with the black background of the overall site while not distracting from the subject of the tiles, which is your actual products that you worked on. So we'll take a look at just one project. For the title, I think it's great that we have a hover. If possible, keep that down to just one line. Again, it just makes it easier for the reviewer to sort of digest. We have a date, and then we have the name of the project or client, as in Strive Labs. So we click, we're taken to the project page. The first thing I notice is that the image is a little bit bigger than on the previous page. That's great, gives me an idea of what we're looking at. We have the title over here, which is great, it's nice and bold. Below, we have the platform. Instead of desktop, I would say web, because obviously laptops can access the web as well. So I would either say web or mobile. We have the tools that were used for the project, and we have Andrew's role on the project. So what I would add, and what's very interesting to recruiters, is not just your role on the project, but what was the overall project team? Who were you working with? Was it a large team? Was it a small team? Was it just yourself? Were you working in a large corporate environment? Were there lots of red tape? Were you working in a startup? They'll be very interested in this and trying to assess whether you're a fit for the role that they're trying to fill. The other item I would suggest here is just to put a little space between this section and the hero image with the title. It kind of blends in, it doesn't stand out, but it's very important, and you want to make that easy to find. So I would shift everything down about an inch, have a white, just have some white space between that hero image and this information, and then more white space before the overview. So for overview, we have a little background of the project. A theme that you'll find with me in my reviews is just have as little text as possible. Be concise, only have as much text as you really need to convey what you want to convey. This is a lot of text here, so you really have to consider balancing information with ease of digest of the information. So I like this dynamic representation of the site here. We're saying it's the original site. That's great. Getting an idea of what the starting point is. This quote is a little long. I would see if you can distill it down a little bit. Maybe keep the initial part. I would have not thought of using the quotes at the top. Delete everything in the middle. Include your ellipsis so you represent that there was more said. Say it speaks to both engineers or customers. That was the whole, in your about me, or in Andrew's about me, that was the whole idea, that he wanted to bridge the gap between technical and non-technical. So I think that'd be great. The next section is a little sneak peek to the end result, the outcome. Again, look through the text, distill it as much as possible. We've got an image here. I think it would be advantageous to show the original side by side with the redesign, just to give a very clear indication of what was changed. And even go over that redesign and have little red circles or red bubbles saying, menu added here, or menu shifted to this side, or quote section added, etc. So here we're just capturing the initiatives of the client. I think this is great. Again, it could be distilled a little bit more, maybe just one line as subtext to the header, but it's really providing some good background. The site audit, again, try to distill the text a little bit. We're including some quotes from some research or interviews with some users, so that's great. He's also included a competitive analysis, which is fantastic. Again, I would like to see this side by side. Maybe shrink down the images and have a vertical a column for each competitor. So one column for Turing, one for Toptal, one for Aldo Hire, et cetera, and set it up like a matrix format. The images are really taking up way too much space here. we have huge gaps between each of the competitors, and it's a little tough to digest the bullet points here because they're fairly narrow. I would consider, if Andrew didn't go the matrix route, get rid of the two columns, just have one column that's a little bit wider so it's a little bit easier for your eyes to flow. Otherwise, the content itself, I think this is great. We're talking about what's included, what's not included, what's good with each one. This is great information to be used in a matrix. I think that'd be a really great way to present this. So now we dive into interviews. We've got some quotes here from, taken out from some of the interviews. Got to distill the text. Just keeping in mind how long a recruiter's looking at this. Maybe for a project have like highlights and then have a clickable version where, more expandable, or it takes you to a page that has more information if the recruiter wants to know more about a particular project. Okay, we're moving on to the next round of interviews. Okay, instead of paragraphs of text, I would just extract quotes from the interview, pertinent quotes that are relative to your research. Something I've done before, feel free to take a look at my portfolio site. I've included images. A lot of my stuff has been done virtually in recent years due to COVID. I'll just take screenshots of that conversation and include it, obviously with the permission of the person that I was interviewing. So next step, we talk about sketches and ideation. I'd love to see them here. And in fact, I think it's more important to see the sketches than to sort of read the narrative. So I think that'd be great. Even if they're messy hand sketches, I've got really messy stuff on my site. And after talking with recruiters, they love the messy stuff. A lot of people just have the clean, high fidelity mockups, but managers and recruiters really want to see how you got there. So we've got some wireframes demonstrating the progress of less to more information. We've got the low fidelity and then moving all the way to the high fidelity, which is great. So we're talking about more interviews here. Andrew mentions that 2 more engineers were interviewed. I think, try to talk to at least 4 people, or when you're interviewing, when you're researching, 4 to 5 is kind of the magic number. 2, you can have one person think one way and one person think the other, and it's tough to get, solid data from that. However, I think it's great that we're talking about the interviews that were held. So this is fantastic too. We have a before and after side-by-side comparison, which is what I was mentioning before. The images could be a little bit bigger, but I do like the concept of having before and after side-by-side. This is cool. These are exactly the type of quotes that I'd like to see. Prominent, big, easy to read, easy to digest. I think if we can have more of these, in the other interview sections, it would really, knock it out of the park. So now we're in persona development. I think this is a great section as well. The text could be a little bit bigger. It kind of feels like it's a different part of the site because the text is a little bit different from the main text that's been utilized. I'd pump up the image size and bold and increase the size of the titles as well, just to add a little bit of visual hierarchy to this presentation. All in all, though, I think it's a good way to represent the personas. So from personas, we're moving into sitemap. I think it's great to have this dynamic representation. Personal preference, again, I would like to see them side by side just to see how one was developed from the other and how you added levels of information. Okay, so this is really cool. Andrew includes the prototype within his portfolio site. So there's no need to click a link, leave the portfolio site. It's very convenient and right there. So I think this is just fantastic. So my first instinct is really just to kind of start scrolling. I see a quote, feedback for the Strive Labs. I'm assuming this is a mock-up that Andrew has developed or has developed with his team. Okay, so we have a couple hot links, view product engineering, talk to us. Okay, we've got another talk to us. Okay, couple links to get to the forums. See if you can get down, reduce a click out of there. Functional programming. So we're talking about the services for Strive Labs, and it looks like, yep, we've got links to product, functional, machine learning here. Andrew does mention in his site that some of the sections were still under development, so it's understandable that there's the lorem ipsum text. But yeah, it's very, essentially a high-level description of the type of services, the university fellowship. So I think this has nice hierarchy. The top menu, it could use maybe a little more visual, intrigue. I think underlining the section that's active, it could be a little more interesting. Like maybe have that text a different color, similar to Andrew's actual site. All right, cool. We've got the about us. We've got images, little description, little kind of resume here in the talk to us form. Okay, so I think this mock-up is very nicely integrated into Andrew's portfolio site. That's fantastic. So continue scrolling down. I think it's great to include in next steps. We aren't always able to work on a project as long as we'd like. We're handing it off to other teams, or for whatever reason, maybe not able to continue with it. So here, Andrew talks about having a handoff with Strive and conveying those ideal next steps to the company. And then we have links to the next case studies down here. So I think that's great. It makes them easy to access. It's a similar format to what was presented in the projects page, so there's no confusion there. And then we've got the bottom menu below.